story time. Today we have a book about the Statue of Liberty, which we've been talking about today as a symbol of America. And this book is about a poem that somebody wrote, a lady wrote, when they were getting ready to put the statue up in the New York Harbor. So it's kind of an interesting book. Here is a picture of the poem in the lady's handwriting. She wrote it. Emma's poem, The Voice of the Statue of Liberty, by Linda Glaser, with paintings by Claire A. Nibola. Two immigrants, then and now. An immigrant is someone who comes to live in one place from another place. So in this case, people who came to live in America from another country. When Emma was a little girl, she had plenty of everything. Plenty of pretty dresses, plenty of good food, and plenty of love from her family. She lived in a large, comfortable home in New York City with her mother and father and her sisters and brother. She loved to read, and she had plenty of books. She loved to write, and she had plenty of time to create stories and poems. All the people Emma knew had plenty of good food and fine clothes. They had plenty of everything. Even when Emma was all grown up, and by then a well-known writer, she still only knew people who had plenty of everything. How about you? Do you have plenty of everything that you need to be happy? But one day, Emma visited Ward's Island in New York Harbor. There she met very poor immigrants, whom she had only heard about. They had traveled a long way across the ocean by boat. They wore ragged clothing and looked tired and sad. Some were sick, and all of them were hungry. They were the poorest people Emma had ever seen. Her heart hurt to see them. They were Jews like Emma. Some were well educated like Emma, but they had been treated very badly in Eastern Europe. Their homes had been burned. Friends and relatives had been killed. Doesn't that look terrible? They had made the long, hard journey to America, hoping for a better life. Emma felt that she must help them. At that time, in the 1880s, people believed that a fine lady like Emma should not mingle with poor people. But Emma often visited the immigrants. She helped them learn English and get training for jobs. In time, she made friends with many of them. Emma knew that in her own city, many people did not care about the immigrants. People said they were ragged and poor, and they'd ruin the country. In those days, women kept their thoughts quiet, but Emma wrote about the immigrants for the newspapers and in her poems. You see Emma right up here? She's writing about her thoughts. She told with great feeling how badly they needed help. She explained that with help they'd give back to the country. Many people read her writing, and some began to care, but still many did not. One day, Emma heard about a huge statue being constructed in France as a gift of friendship for the United States. It was meant to show the great love of liberty that both countries shared. The statue was huge, 151 feet tall. The arm holding the torch was 42 feet long. The statue would be erected right in New York Harbor, but first money was needed to build a very large pedestal for the statue to stand on. This is in France where it's being constructed. To raise money, many well-known American writers such as Mark Twain and Walt Whitman were asked to write something. Emma was asked to create a poem, and the whole collection would be sold to help pay for the statue's pedestal. Emma Lazarus always wrote what she cared about. Now she thought hard. What did she want to say? At that time, the Statue of Liberty had nothing to do with immigrants. But Emma knew that the immigrants would see the huge woman when their boats arrived in the New York harbor. Wouldn't they wonder why she was there? What might they think? What might they hope? And what if the statue were a real live woman? What might she think when she saw immigrants arriving hungry and in rags? What might she feel? And Emma pondered, what would the statue say if she could actually speak? Emma took up her pen and began to write. Emma's poem was the only one read at the large celebration in 1883 to raise money for the pedestal. Those listening heard a powerful new voice speak up for the immigrants. In the last few lines of Emma's poem, they heard the huge statue send out a welcome to immigrants and boldly tell the world, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." That was part of her poem. 3 years later, in 1886, when enough money had been raised, the statue was packed into 214 crates and shipped across the Atlantic Ocean and erected in the New York harbor on top of the pedestal. Though sadly Emma did not live to see the statue erected, she knew that her poem helped buy the pedestal for it, and she also knew that her poem gave the huge woman a strong and caring voice. But she did not know that in the years to come her poem would do much more. Slowly over time, Emma's poem stirred the hearts and minds of people around the nation. So Emma died quite young of a bad disease, so she never even saw the statue in New York Harbor that she wrote the poem for. I wanted to show you right here, look. There's the face, there's a foot, putting the statue back together. 20 years after Emma wrote it, a friend had the poem engraved on a plaque and placed inside the entrance to the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty for visitors to see. 30 years after that, Emma's poem was printed in school textbooks, and children across the country learned to recite it. Then, more than 60 years after Emma wrote her poem, the last 5 lines of it, the statue's bold words, were set to music by the famous songwriter Irving Berlin and sung on Broadway. Soon, school children around the country were singing, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Now the huge statue was more than a gift of friendship from France to the United States. Because of Emma's poem, the Statue of Liberty had become the mother of immigrants, and her torch was a lamp held out to welcome them. Can you see the statue clear there? So here is a boat and the immigrants coming to the United States, and what's the first thing that they see in the harbor? They see the Statue of Liberty. Today, Emma's poem is so well known that when people look at the Statue of Liberty, they can almost hear her speaking. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. You can tell how large it is. Look at these people. That's just on the pedestal. See these little people?